Hey guys, so in this video we're going to look at what makes Bugha the best player in the entire world. If you didn't watch the Fortnite World Cup, I'm gonna be honest, you deserve to be smacked in the head, but SEN Bugha absolutely dominated in the solo finals. He finished with an insane 59 points, which was almost double the next highest players. He also did all of this against 99 of the best other players in the world. I'm extremely excited to make this video because I've been a huge Bugha fan for months. I've been following him since he only had a few hundred followers, and I even predicted he'd win the World Cup. In my opinion, there's no better player to watch or to learn from, so that's exactly what we're going to do. I'll first talk about a few things he does differently or better than most players, and then we'll look at some ways we can improve that aspect of our game like Bugha did. Let's start with the first thing you'll notice from watching Bugha's gameplay. His insane building. Bugha is arguably the best builder in the world. When you watch him do 1v1s and play creative, it's hard to believe he's actually a world-class competitive player. The speed, smoothness, and creativity of his builds looks more like some cracked creative warrior that spends 10 hours a day doing wagers. The funny part is, he basically is a creative warrior, he just has a brain to go alongside of it. Bugha spends hours in creative every single day, build battling other pros or free building by himself. That's why his biggest recommendation for players looking to improve their mechanics is to simply practice building by themselves. Bugha will literally go into a blank creative world and crank 90s and different high ground retakes to height limit. This helps him build muscle memory and is one of the main reasons you'll rarely, if ever, see him make a mistake while building. On top of that, what really separates Bugha apart from other top builders is how well he can translate it into real games. I made an entire video covering the subject and used Bugha as an example in it, so be sure to check that out. But in most cases, creative warriors just don't know when or what to build in actual matches. Bugha is always practicing practical retakes and actually manages to use them in scrims and tournaments. He knows which retakes are most effective for each situation he gets into and which would not work. That comes mainly from experience and playing in scrims every single day. Bugha also does things like VOD reviews, which is when he'll watch back his own gameplay or gameplay of other top tier players to learn and improve from. So Bugha practices both his building and learning when to use his ridiculous building in game. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably about to comment that you spent hours in creative but your building still isn't as clean or as fast as Bugha's. A big part of that is Bugha's sensitivity and what he's physically doing while he's building. Bugha plays on 400 DPI and 0.13 in-game sense. That's a decently low sensitivity in the grand scheme of things, but when you watch how fast he builds, you would not believe it to be true. When I first saw him play, I legitimately thought he was on some insane Mr. Savage-like sense because of how twitchy his gameplay is. He can pull off some of the hardest and most advanced building techniques with ease, so when I learned he was playing on 52 EDPI, I was stunned. What Bugha does is he flicks his mouse around like crazy. During his mouse cam streams, you can see how he throws his hand and arm around like a madman. Half of the time, his mouse looks like a dead fish flopping around his desk, and his camera has trouble keeping up with it. This, combined with his low sense, allows him to be extremely smooth and rarely overshoot build placements. Plus, if he needs to do some insane high ground retake, he can crank it out even with his low sense. This is one of his most unique attributes that is really hard to emulate. I play on literally the same exact sense with the same exact mousepad, and I'm still not able to crank like he can. You need arm space and a big mousepad, so if you're trying to switch to a lower sense while still building quickly, you'll need those two things to do it. The last thing building related that I wanted to mention are Bugha's binds. Bugha has some of the least optimal binds you can get. He builds with X, V, C, and F, so he doesn't use his mouse buttons at all, and he hits all of his build binds with his index finger. Please, for the love of God, do not go and copy him. Bugha is a freak of nature who could technically be faster in more optimal binds, but the man just won the World Cup. Obviously, he's doing something right. Since all of you are not Bugha, you should be switching to, or switched already, to optimal binds. Otherwise, you're just holding yourself back. Next, let's talk about Bugha's editing. Just like his building, Bugha's editing is insanely quick and flawless. I never see him miss an edit or edit too fast. When you add in his building, his mechanics allow him to make plays that not many other players are capable of making. There were so many times during the World Cup finals where he would be rotating to zone and get caught in an awkward spot, yet he'd survive solely because of his mechanics. I can guarantee you 95% of the pros in that World Cup lobby would have died in those tight situations because they would have scuffed an edit or built too slowly. Not Bugha though. When your mechanics are that good, you don't even have to think about that stuff. Building and editing are second nature to him, so he's just thinking about what he's going to do next in game. He doesn't have to worry about trying to re-edit a wall or blocking himself off with a floor while going for high ground. He's focused in on where he should rotate to next or where he should focus for a kill. That's why we saw him slay out the way he did and completely dominate in the most stacked pool of players ever. The way Bugha practices his edits are through just random free builds and 1v1s. He doesn't do any dedicated edit courses or anything like that. This way he combines his building and editing practice and does them at the same time. The third and maybe the best aspect of his game I'll cover is his box fighting. Box fighting combines everything we've talked about so far and what we still have to talk about. Building and editing, as well as aiming and game sense. A lot of people thought Bugha was only a good box fighter because he plays on 0 ping and can yoink walls. What they fail to realize is, box fighting is so much more than that. You have to be thinking about what your opponent is planning to do and what they'll do next. What makes Bugha such a good box fighter is that his mechanics allow him to outplay anyone and focus completely on the mind game aspect of it. His edits and builds are fast and flawless, which allows him to make plays and win any box fighting situation he can get into. I've been saying box fighting is the meta for months now, and people are still only realizing it. An Australian pro player from the World Cup tweeted out that he only just realized that the best players are also the best box fighters. I guess he should have watched one of my videos. But seriously, box fighting is the meta. If you want to get to that pro level, you need to become a top box fighter regardless of your ping. Go into a blank creative world or load up Speedy Gonzalez's box fighting map and practice box fighting with your friends. Also, go watch players like Aspect, Bugha, and Mongrel stream. You'll learn different tricks for every box fighting scenario and can apply it to your game. Most of the time, it comes down to your mechanics and outsmarting the person on the other side of the turtle, so you just have to put in the work to master it. The fourth and most underrated Bugha attribute is his aim. Bugha has among the best aim in the world. Not only can he laser anyone gliding out of the air, but he's got one of the nastiest sniper shots I've ever seen. Again, this is all due to practice and his sensitivity. I can sit here and pretend that you'll have just as good aim on high sense, but in reality, you just can't. Bugha's really low sense allows him to track enemies with pinpoint precision. The problem that most people on low sense run into is that they just can't build fast enough. Bugha is unique in that way because he doesn't have that problem, and that's what makes him the best player in the world. If he needs to do an insane 180 shotgun flick, he can, and if he needs to beam someone out of the sky from 150 meters away, he can do that too. Just like Mongrel, Bugha uses an extremely low targeting sense of 0.3. When you watch him yoink a wall and then ADS with a shotgun, you'd never think it was that low. Then you watch him laser someone with an AR and instead you'd think he's on controller. Now, like I said before, this is really hard to replicate on your own. I have never seen anyone flick and crank their arm like Bugha does. You need a big mouse pad, arm space, and a light mouse. Bugha uses a Ninja Final mouse which is 58 grams, so it's a lot easier to flick around his desk. Even with all these things though, go and play on his sense and try to move around as fast as he does and you'll see it's almost impossible to do yourself. But then again, that's what makes Bugha a 1 out of 40 million kind of player. My advice for you guys would be to try out a lower sense if you're on something really high. On top of that, try a lower ADS sense, and of course, go grind some Kovacs. Bugha has said in the past he uses Kovacs, so obviously it does help and work to improve your aim. The last and final thing that makes Bugha so damn good is his game sense. Bugha is only 16, but he's an extremely mature, level-headed, and intelligent player. Other than the second game where he died off spawn, Bugha placed top 10 every single game, including when he won the first game. Consistently making it to the top 10 against the 99 other best players in the world is an incredible feat. Even if he hadn't killed anyone and gotten 0 elimination points, he still would have won the tournament by his placement points alone. Part of Bugha's game sense comes from VOD reviewing and grinding scrims every day for over a year now. I think the other part just comes naturally to him. Bugha is a really smart kid that learns extremely fast. The combination of his building, editing, box fighting, aim, and game sense are second to none. He really is a complete package, and he showed that by putting on an absolute clinic at the World Cup. Hopefully this video has helped you understand what makes Bugha the best player in the world, and what you can do to improve and to get to that level. Do not just go and copy his settings and peripherals and all of that. Instead, learn from him and add it to your game so you can get better yourself. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and to turn on post notifications. Shout out to everyone using code Jarian and to everyone I met at the World Cup. I seriously love all of you guys and I can't thank you all enough. Otherwise, that's it from me and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.